The way we lead impacts the way people live. This world needs truly human leadership. I'm Brent Stewart, your host. Thanks for listening. This podcast is an outreach of Barry-Wehmiller. You can connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller, and find our podcasts, articles, and videos at trulyhumanleadership.com. You're listening to a Truly Human Leadership podcast refresher, where we reshare insight from podcast episodes from the past. Chapman & Co. Leadership Institute is Barry-Wehmiller's consulting company that helps organizations identify, develop, and equip leaders. They bring the lessons we've learned inside Barry-Wehmiller and our principles of truly human leadership, along scientific methods, to provide individual and organizational assessments, training, and consultation to help their clients drive exceptional results through a culture where people and performance are in harmony. And on this THL Refresher podcast, we're going to bring you a discussion between two of Chapman & Co.'s leading partners, Sara and Matt Whiat, and Barry-Wehmiller CEO, Bob Chapman. This was done at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the three used Barry-Wehmiller's experience during crisis to give leaders insight into how they may handle their own crisis. But it's not a discussion that's just limited to the unique situation of a global pandemic. Crisis can hit business at any time. And so now, here's Sara.
All right, Bob, I know people are eager to hear your take on the current times and perhaps what we learned in 08 and 09 that is relevant, but we're actually going to start with a little bit more of a history lesson. And so my first question for you is, you had a fairly traditional path through your undergraduate, through graduate school, joining your dad in the Barry-Wehmiller business. Where, not the transition that happened, but when you look at kind of your family influences, your mom, your dad, what did you get from them? And what did you learn from your family? Essentially, how did you turn out this way?
As I look back on my childhood, I would say I had a very traditional middle-class childhood. And my dad was somewhat kind of a little bit of he was a worrier. And my mom was a good old, wonderful Iowa farm girl, very simple, wonderful person. And I believe that for some reason I was blessed with a eternally optimistic personality. When I think, and I always say to myself, can you be a good leader and not be an optimist? Because I believe an optimistic, seeing the glass half full as opposed to half empty is an important part of leadership, because I think our responsibility as leaders is to give those people in our span of care a grounded sense of hope for a better future. So I'm not, I just think I was born with a positive attitude, blessed with a positive attitude.
What would that positive attitude say to the new MBA graduate? You came out of University of Michigan, great business school. You come out of there. Let's say you could go back in time and you could talk to him. You would say,
I thought life was about my success, and as I think back on my journey, it was always about me and my success. And I realize now that so much about leadership is the success of the people around you, not just in your family, but the people you have the privilege of leading. And I think as you look back on your life someday, and I wish as a young MBA I had written my eulogy, that I had actually written my own eulogy, what I would like somebody to say about my life someday, and then I would go try and make it true. Because I think quite often we live, I know I did, from kind of event, you get married, you have kids, you get a job, you join buy your first house, everything is a series of events. And your kids go to school, they graduate from college, they get married. And I think we need to step back, as young people and look at life as a journey. And no journey is usually a straight line. It has its dramatic ups and downs. And I would say to a young MBA, from my greatest of challenges came my greatest personal growth.
So the older version of you is going back to the younger version of you and saying, write your eulogy. So I don't want to go down this dark road too far here, but what's the title of the eulogy? Give us that. Give us the title of Bob Chapman.
I want to make a difference in the lives of others and therefore make my life more meaningful.
You talk about these life milestones or these events that we go through. Certainly 0809 was one of those transition pieces or an inflection point, a decision to be made in how you would handle it. And at the time, and I want to frame this carefully for everybody listening in, we don't directly compare 0809 to current times. They are very different in the speed, the substance, the dramatic turn in the markets. However, the thinking is something that has inspired us in current day. So if you go back to, I believe you were traveling in Italy at the time, the news that we were going to be impacted in 08, 09, and talk about what are the thoughts that go through your head and how to approach the situation we were in.
Well, I think important to our listeners is that you have to understand kind of the background upon which, when I was sitting in that hotel, kind of formulated my thinking. And we had been on a journey, Sara, which you began with us on, to understand that the 12,000 people that work for us were not engineers, accountant, production team members, machinists, et cetera. They were somebody's precious child that was in our care. And that we had begun, through our guiding principles of leadership, the foundation upon which we believe to lead. We had gone out and decided we wanted to not hang them on the wall, but to put them in people's heads and hearts. So I had been having these listening sessions where I said to people, we care about you, we're trying to give you a good future, and together we can do good things. And so when the crisis hit, we had been in this mode of prophesizing on a different way of thinking about leadership. And so when it hit us, my natural instinct, I think it was in February, early March of 09, when a major order that was in our backlog got put on hold. We thought one thing to not get new orders, but it's another thing to lose the orders you already had. And I sat in this hotel room and I said, oh my God, I've been telling people we care. And we say we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. If we let people go, which would have been my natural instinct, it's what we do. It would have been my natural instinct. We're going to hurt people badly. And if we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people and we let people go, we're going to hurt them. And so I said to myself, what would a caring family do if a member of a family was in stress? We would all pitch in and we all might take a little pain, so nobody would take a lot of pain. So if you understand that we had launched these guiding principles of leadership and begun to talk about them, then in that context, when we embraced the challenge, we had kind of the foundation to act upon that in a totally different way, looking at the people in our care as somebody's precious child, and we didn't want to hurt them. And so we came up with this idea of shared sacrifice. We'll all take a little pain so that nobody will have to take a lot of pain. So that was really laid the foundation for me to have that thought that stimulated our unique approach to the 08 downturn, which was the most severe we had ever seen and experienced at the time. And again, we didn't know what was going to happen then either. It was the kind of collapse of the banking system and the stock market. So again, our guiding principle of leadership became the foundation upon which it shaped our thinking. It wasn't just a random thought. It was from this constantly out preaching that we care about you, and together we can do good things, pay people fairly and treat them superbly. So all these things came together to form a totally different way than I had historically responded to these issues, which is, we have to let people go. We don't have the work. And so we took a totally different approach, which really made a dramatic impact on our people.
Bob, you mentioned the 08, 09 downturn, and it was more of a protracted recession. What are some differences you see between that? Sara mentioned the fact that we're talking about the very similar thinking style. But so what's your thinking style now as we start entering into COVID?
08, 09 happened pretty suddenly, too, not quite as suddenly as this. And it followed a period of quite a bit of prosperity. So as this COVID-19 crisis hit us, we have been strengthened by the resolve and the learnings from the 0809 to bring into this. And, one of the things that never occurred to me, and I'd want your listeners to know, is when we talk about needing to adjust our teams and let, unfortunately, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people go, we can monetize what that will mean financially, okay? We can say if you take those people out, it'll reduce our cost by $5 million a year, whatever the number is. What I had no idea is the person that didn't stay, that didn't get let go, the damage to them of seeing their friends who they work with, who they know their family, lose their job, and the negative impact, the collateral damage to the people that stay, and the people knowing, okay, if it happened to Joe or Mary who sit next to me, it could happen to me. So that feeling of circle of safety is not there. You don't feel safe anymore because you just saw 2 or 3 people in your team get asked to leave suddenly, walked out the door knowing it's going to hurt their family. So we really learned a lot about what I call the collateral damage of this. And the other thing I was amazed at is when we did what we did, which was ask people to take a month off without pay, it was a dramatic positive to people, which surprised me because we were asking people to give up 1/12 of their income. But what they were doing is they were giving to others. It wasn't the fact, my impression in general, it wasn't so much that they lost 1/12 of their income. They felt they were helping their team members who they work with every day. They know their kids, they know their spouse, and they were helping them. So it was a genuine act of gratitude, of friendship, of compassion for others, of empathy for others. And I was really startled in a positive way how people were willing to give up that time to help their friends and colleagues at work. And that would never have occurred to me before we went through what we went through in 08. And I had no idea how people would react. And I was incredibly surprised at how the beauty of humanity came out through those initiatives.
I think as somebody who lived through that time with you, I think the unforeseen benefit, and it's hard to kind of wrap your mind around a benefit around a challenging time, but would be the increased trust, the empathy, and the kind of the currency that was created as people were able to donate furlough days, take days for other people, and kind of share what that experience meant. We had a question come into the Q&A that is separate from that, navigating that decision between furlough and layoffs. What is the responsibility of leadership to reduce anxiety? So what are the other things you think is critical for leadership to do during this time to reduce people's anxiety?
I would say to you, we have been doing a video communication once a week where I basically shape the message and it goes out in 10 different languages around the world because we operate all over the world with our 12,000 people. And the emails I have seen come back where people just appreciate hearing how the company's doing and what we're doing and why we're doing it directly from me. That reinforces what they're hearing from their leaders. So I would say to you, it amplifies in any situation of crisis the need for thoughtful communication that understands the way people are feeling and communicates in an empathetic way and listens to them and helps them get through this together. Because this is a time when we need an amazing amount of empathy for the impact this makes on others, the insecurity it creates, the doubts, the financial security. So communication and listening are amplified dramatically in times like this, and shaping your message to show that you care. That is the most important thing I can say to anybody, is to look at those people in your span of care as your precious children, and treat them just like you would like your child treated, to help them get through this together and feel cared for and heard and understand the feelings they may have in this period of time.
I'll have another question from the audience. I know this is a little bit more of a difficult one, but if you think about your own journey and when Barry-Wehmiller is first starting, when it's a $20 million company, not the $3 billion global organization it is today. So back then, it's not as diversified. The cash reserves are not what they are. For a leader who either has not planned as well, or for someone who doesn't have a diversified business model right now, what's your perspective? What's your advice to them?
Well, first of all, it's a great time to look at how your business model is performing. There's an expression, you need to get the right people on the bus. I think my version of that is you need to build a safe bus. okay? And that individual asking the question may be in the process of trying to build a safe bus, but he doesn't have it fully integrated in a safe way. So the business model is the safe bus, and then you need drivers who know where they're going and how to get there safely to drive that bus, to drive that business model. So in the early days, what I would say to you is you got to constantly look at the design of your business model and to make sure that you are, like your life, you're not building on any one pillar, and you're being as prudent as you can. And it's harder in a startup business than one with substance. But you got to constantly say, I always say when Ford builds an F-150, they go out and put it in the worst conditions they possibly can to make sure it holds up. Well, you need to look at your business model. How is it performing now? And what do you learn from this in terms of, as you come out of this, how you can refine that design to make it more resilient to the changes that inevitably happen in our economic environment. And again, I had, 08, 09 was only the recent, we had the dot-com meltdown, we had the 87 stock market crash, we had high inflation. I have been through a lot of situations. But again, our responsibility as leaders is to give those people who count on us a grounded sense of hope that we can get through this together. That is our responsibility every day when we come in, is to understand that people are going to be looking to us for hope and faith that we can get through this together. And it was amazing the gifts people will give you if you create an environment where they feel valued and part of the solution.
A challenging question is how to navigate. We've had a couple questions come in. One, how do you handle just non-performance, but also how do you handle a business unit that's underperforming, not due to COVID, but certainly that circumstances happening during this time? As a business leader, do you handle non-performance or non-performance as a business unit differently because of the circumstance that we're in?
That's a good question. There's a lot of times a business unit is not performing because of the leader, okay? And we quite often take it out on the people through layoffs, downside, et cetera. And so when you look at, again, your business model, I designed our business model so we're not dependent upon any one industry, any one technology, any one market. And I run it conservatively because I care about our 12,000 people and the customers we serve and the communities we're a part of, so that people can have a sense of comfort that they're part of an organization, that they can build a family, they can live in a home, they can live reasonable lives with their families. So I would say to you, until you kind of get that airspeed, and again, when you've got a non-performance issue, the question is it the business model? Is it the business leader? And you really got to take a step back. And this is not a time, in my opinion, when you deal with non-performance. You always deal with non-performance because non-performance is hurting people, okay? And I one of the early things I learned is I put up with an individual because I knew him, I knew his family, I'd hired him, and I really wanted to work out for him. But I realized one day I was so focused on him that I wasn't focused on the people. His lack of leadership was hurting. So, I think this is a complex question. The question is, in any family, we may have a child that is at a different stage of enjoying life compared to the others. So, you got to look at every one of these situations. You got to look at the leaders. You got to look at the business model. You got to look at the fundamentals, and you have to make decisions. And you've got to make the best decision you can for the long term, because unless you know where you're going, it's hard to make a short-term decision.
Bob, let's stay on that same vein, if you don't mind, because there's a few questions that came in here about, and I want you to, if you don't mind, comment both on the activity and the language that's being used. So somebody says, basically, what do you fire somebody for? We're starting to go down that road right now with the non-performance, but can you talk about that, whether it's here or in non-COVID times, people hear a message of this caring for people. Basically, do you fire people? What do they get fired for at Barry-Wehmiller?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the language.
Yep.
I hate the word fire. Okay? When we talk about treating people in your span of care as somebody's precious child, the word, as I understand it, the expression fire people came from the French firing squad. Okay? when you deal with issues, and we deal in our families, we call it hard love, okay? You do everything you can do with your kids to be a good steward of that child, but occasionally, and more often than not frequently, you have to make decisions that are hard for that child to embrace, but you know it's right for that child. The same thing with a division. Sometimes the best decision you can make is ask somebody to step aside, not to fire somebody. Would you fire your own kids? Would you treat somebody you cared for and with that language? You know, one of the problems we have is the language of business is broken. We have managers, bosses, and supervisors. We fire people. All these things are to make it so we can do these hard things without feeling the impact on the people that we impact. So again, when we ask people to step aside, that quite often is the best thing for them, okay? But how we do that and how we treat them is important as the decision, because we want that person as best possible to come away with a chance to learn from that and grow from that and be a better leader in the next position they go into. But how we deal with people is so important. Again, sometimes you look at a business not performing, and is it the leader who I hired and I'm kind of committed to, or is it the business fundamentals itself, And that's not an easy answer in many cases, okay? To separate the issue of the leader hasn't brought about the right technology, the right market focus, the right financial discipline, or is it a flawed business model? And that's a call you've got to make, because we've got to remember, we always say it's around people, purpose, and performance. It starts with our fundamental responsibility to the people in our span of care around a purpose that inspires them, but then we have to create value. If we are not creating value, we are going to lose the confidence of the people that give us the privilege of being in business. And creating value is extremely important. You cannot be good to your family if you do not create value through your professional employment. We cannot be good to our people if our businesses are not creating value. And so I would say to you that that's a tough call, but it is the call of leadership to be able to do that. And quite often it's what we call tough love. And that's what we have to exercise.
Yeah, and just a follow-up really quick, not necessarily a question, but just a quick comment. It's a really good call out that sometimes can it be the leader, but sometimes is it how the business is organized. We see this in professional sports teams where I'm just simply going to replace the coach. But if I haven't replaced the underpinnings of the overall management of the organization, the recruiting, all of those things, that it actually doesn't change the outcome. So great call out. And just if anyone is from France listening in, we are not blaming you for the word fire. There are other firing squads. Bob's got a great comment. The language and business and we use comes sometimes from a more militaristic.
We need a more compassionate and caring language as we deal with people in our span of care. And that is incredibly, because remember, we talk about the concern of the virus on the health of our people, okay? We're very concerned with the health of our people. We wash our hands, we social distance, we stay home if we can, all to protect the health. But the way we deal with this crisis in terms of our language, the behavior in terms of the way we treat people, creates stress. And stress is a major factor in the health and welfare of our people. So not only do we want them to be healthy from a virus standpoint, avoiding the virus, but we want them to feel cared for, and we want to call them to be there for each other. So this is a time when we all come together and we can learn a great deal. We can look at our business model. We can look at the performance of our teams, and we can challenge everybody to rise to a higher level, because in many crises, real leaders emerge and real people come together and work harder for each other. And that's what we got to inspire our teams to do. We're in this together, and we will get through this together. And it calls all of us to play the game at the highest level so we can get through this together and learn and live a better life from what we learn.
We also have some questions along the vein of, we are in a very challenged industry. We were forced to do a layoff, or we have a lot of people who are on furlough. So how do I show up as a leader? What's my responsibility? How do I lead those people that are left? So I want to still have a people first culture for the people that are left, or my workforce is furloughed. And so can you comment on how we have to show up and what should we be doing for those people that have been through some traumatic experiences?
Well, I think we have to show up every day with a great deal of empathy. We've got empathy and obviously the words we choose. In my worst days in 1983, when we lived day to day on cash, we had no idea whether we'd make it the next day. I don't ever remember losing hope. I don't ever remember being frustrated or concerned. I showed up every day with a positive attitude that we will get through this together. Now, one of the things I believe is, we had a situation in our division out in Flagstaff, Arizona, where we had a major customer dramatically change their buying behavior. And at that time, this business unit was highly dependent. And what we said, we explored every single option before we considered the fact that we had to adjust the team level to the new level of business. And when we did, we approached those people who we were going to not be able to keep in our organization with tremendous compassion, empathy, and help to help them get through this. And we stayed with everybody to make sure that they landed okay. So one of the things I would say to you for the health of the people that stay in your company is, how are you dealing with the people that you were not able to keep? And so I would say to you, compassion, listening, and leadership. This is when you need to be a positive force in the world. People want to believe in the company. They want to believe in you, and they want to believe there's hope. And I mean grounded sense of hope, not, I don't mean bringing a Disney World attitude things. We've got to give people a sense of hope. And that is our responsibility. We've got to look for the goodness. And what I'd say is I would be incredibly focused on acts of goodness, of caring. When we were in that crisis, Sara, you remember, we highlighted people who volunteered to take time for somebody else, who said, look, I appreciate this time, even if it's a furlough, I now get time with my kids. So we spent as much time looking for the goodness while we were dealing with the challenges, so that it gave people a sense of hope.
Bob, this is a question that I'm going to give to you that you commonly ask a lot of people at dinner, and it changes the entire construct of it, and then we all walk away very quickly. But you like to ask the question, with the time that you have left on this earth, what do you hope to accomplish? And so you have a lot of time left on this earth. We've sequestered you away in some attic in Florida, as everyone can see here. So you are socially distancing. So with the time you have left on this planet, Bob, what do you hope to accomplish?
Well, I used to say that I wanted to touch as many people's lives positively as I could in a lasting way in the time I have left. I would say that has evolved. My thinking has evolved. Today, I believe we have been blessed with the way in which we can live and work together and send people home knowing that who they are and what they do matters. I believe that we've been blessed with the way we were intended to live and work together, where we would have a chance to, if you will, play the game of business in a way that we brought our gifts and we went home each night feeling valued. And so I hope in the time I have left to show that business, if embracing these principles of guiding principles of leadership, where we genuinely care about the people we have the privilege of leading. And again, I want to say real quickly here, in an interview one time, I was asked for about an hour and a half about our company. And at the end, the professor said, you're the first CEO I've ever interviewed that didn't talk about your product. And I said, I've been talking about a product for the last hour and a half. I will not leave this earth proud of the machinery we built for our customers. I will leave this earth proud of the people who built those machines. And I think that is our focus. Our product is our people. And that is, and I want to leave this earth with business becoming a powerful force for good. Not asking the government, what are you going to do to help my business? But what can our business do to help our country, our companies through this environment? What can we do to all get through this together and come out of it stronger, better connected in humanity and with a common purpose?
Don't forget to find us and connect on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller. And you can find more podcasts, articles, and videos at trulyhumanleadership.com. I'm Brent Stewart. Thanks for listening.